How do I figure out what's next in my career? How do I align my work with what truly matters to me? And the biggest question of all, can I really design a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to come at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I've seen how traditional paths can leave people burned out or boxed in. And I know there's a better way, one that invites you to let go of outdated rules and outside expectations, one that evolves and supports meaningful growth over time. Whether you're feeling stuck, craving more clarity, or ready to expand within your current role and beyond, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to explore practical, modern strategies for building a meaningful, heart-based career. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy, and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm Jen Smith, your host, and today I'm thrilled to be here for another installment of Flourishing Together, a segment dedicated to curated conversations with industry insiders sharing wisdom and strategies for improving your work and well-being. Today, I am delighted to introduce you to Ann VanTol. Ann is the founder of Forces of Nature, offering nature-inspired yoga nidra and soulful journeys for women seeking deep rest, reconnection with nature, and the rediscovery of their inner magic. She's a certified yoga nidra guide and a 300-hour registered yoga teacher. She has been devoted to the practice for nearly 6 years alongside a lifelong relationship with yoga. Her work unfolds through slow and embodied experiences in forest and ocean settings, as well as gatherings in community to consciously connect with the earth, explore ways nature supports our healing and becoming, and awakens our creative expression. Rooted in lived experience and years of personal healing through time spent in the forest and by the ocean, Ann continues to walk this path as both a guide and a student, allowing her work to be shaped by ongoing practice. Through this weaving of practices, she supports women in slowing down and remembering their innate connection to themselves, the earth, and a steadier way of being. Fun fact, Ann and I have been connected for years. I've had the privilege of watching her path unfold from afar, and it has been an extra special delight, and I'm so happy to have her here today. We are going to talk about the power of nature and how career fulfillment doesn't always require a complete career change. Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jen. It's so wonderful to be here, and I feel so honored to get to have this conversation with you.
Yes, this is going to be so good. We're talking about both of our favorite topics is the natural world. So I'm excited to get into it. Let's kind of start back with your career. And I'd love for you to share with listeners about a time where you realized your life and career wasn't really nourishing you the way that you had hoped.
So I think obviously life takes us through many twists and turns and different seasons. And I would have to say the most pivotal one was strangely during COVID, right at the beginning of COVID, when we all shut down, the world shut down. And we were spending all of our time alone. And at first it felt like we weren't going to be alone. Maybe we'd be coming back. And so there were a lot of shifts at work. There were a lot of shifts with how we work and ways we work, and specifically around going from a physical touch environment to having to pivot to digital, and how is all this work getting done when we're so used to being in person. So there was a lot of shifting happening there, a lot of adapting to how to do this, how to do it alone. And eventually, after some time passed and I realized, well, I'm going to be alone for a while, I decided that it was a great opportunity to take advantage of that alone time and to start creating some adventures for myself. And one of them was, or the key adventure for myself was getting outdoors, and really getting into nature and getting to experience that. And at the time I was doing it solo. And I think the more that I did it, the more that I got into it, that's when it started to shift. And when I started to awaken and realize that there was a piece that wasn't being nourished, that I had forgotten, that I had lost my connection to. And so I think that was the awakening, was actually through nature and being in time in nature and slowing down. Doing things much slower, doing things much more intentionally, because we didn't have to be in the rush, and we had time to be quiet and listen.
Yes. And it's so interesting. COVID was wild, first of all, but there were a lot of gifts that came out of that in the working world and as well in our lifestyles, I think. So you mentioned a few of them. And I love how you mentioned that you capitalized on that alone time and created adventures for yourself. Like, what a lovely way to think about that and to use that time and space that we were given. And now it's making me remember, actually, Lorianne, I remember sharing something on LinkedIn about, it was a metaphor around career change and skydiving. And I remember that you jumped on that and your comments were so energetic and exciting. And I love knowing that about you. And the fact that you mentioned adventure here, you have a major adventure piece of you. And when you're working and I know you work in a corporate environment, but when you're working in that, 24/7, kind of constantly, you forget about that adventure and you forget about that wonder. That's really part of who you are. And I'm so glad that COVID brought that back for you.
Yeah, it's tricky to call that time a gift. I think there were also some things that were not,
of course,
difficult, but I like to take away that piece of it. I was fortunate to not be as impacted by it, where I got to take away that gift.
Yeah.
Wow, we're slowing down. We can look for the gems. We can grab them and use that as medicine to fill up the pieces that might not be nurturing us in our career right now.
Yes. And it's also interesting that time period allowed us to notice that, so it's once you step away from the routine, you can notice what's been missing. And I think that's also a big piece of it. It's you don't know what you don't know. Let's talk about how that felt on a deeper level. So you're getting out in these adventures, tell us where you are and kind of how that felt.
This is who I am. This is where I'm meant to be. And then from that slowness, that quietness, that connection, from that is where ideas start to spark, right?
Yeah.
It starts to open up and it flows in. It's not forced. It's there, right? It's been there all along, and we're not able to take the time to notice it or to pay attention to it, or we notice it and we dismiss it or we push it aside. I don't have time for that. I have to work. So I think that's what I started noticing the most was, wow, writing, there's this strong part of me that used to write, like creative writing, and I stopped because I don't have time, because my brain, when I do stop for 5 minutes, my brain can't stop the spin of everything else that I have to do on my to-do list. And so getting away and taking that space in nature and really slowing down and not having a to-do list at that time, it allows the flow to organically come in and start to speak to you and to say, here's the writing, here's the art, here's the organic piece of yourself that wants to come out, that's there and has been, quieted down, has been dismissed because of all the things we have to do that life demands of us to do. That's one of the gifts that nature has given me. I now go into the forest on one of my journeys or on a walk, and the writing is literally happening in my brain. That is all that's happening in my brain, is just sentences are pouring out. I can't jot them down fast enough. It's just flowing through. And so it's amazing that when you have that reciprocity or that that deep communion with nature, it's gifting that back to you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love hearing that. And I love hearing about your writing that came back to you when you reconnected with yourself and with nature and just being outside, and how that it just brings it to you. It's wild. I've had those same things where I'll just be walking and get these downloads, like, and I'm like, what is that? It just happened to me like last week. I was like, what is that? Like tears start coming from down. I'm like, what is happening? And then you like, I get home and just write it all out. It's wild. And so I love that you mentioned the forest. Are there other places that you go where you feel really connected?
Yeah, also during COVID, this sweet space of adventure and exploration that I gave myself was also some time with the ocean. I am incredibly fortunate to live very, very close to walking distance to the ocean and the trees. And so I was spending quite a deal of time at the ocean as well. And I think for me, it's like I don't know if it's an internal season or if it doesn't really flow with the true traditional seasons, but it's an internal season of, am I feeling watery right now? And that's the connection I need to have. Or am I feeling like I really need the ground and the soil and the smell of the trees? And so I flow in and out of those two cycles. So the ocean, I definitely spent a lot of time with. Also, even prior to COVID, there was a big space of time where that was just my medicine at that time. And really like getting my feet in the water. The water is extremely cold here in California. So I don't go in fully that often, but getting my feet wet and getting my hands in the salty ocean and cleansing, touching my heart, to that salt water, and again, communing with the ocean and Mother Nature's, the power and the strength of the ocean, and what can you help me with? What can you guide me with?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can imagine the ocean. I don't have the luxury of being near the ocean. We have lakes here. I'm very drawn to the lakes. But I think it's really interesting too, noticing what you are drawn to. So you and I have talked about how much we love trees. Like I love the trees, but my sister like loves the water. And so I think like different people are drawn to different things. And like what you just mentioned, depending on what you have going on in life, you might be drawn to different parts of the natural world that will help you feel grounded or feel cleansed in the water, whatever that might be. But I think like the story here too is noticing what you are drawn to and just go give it a try and see how you feel afterwards. Even just going and like touching my favorite tree. I have a favorite tree. I go and touch my favorite tree. You have a favorite tree too. I talked to someone else. They have a favorite tree. So this might be a thing. We have favorite pens and notebooks. We also have favorite trees. But there's something there, like something happens. And I'll never forget, you were just talking about the water. I'll never forget this one time I was working in a really, really demanding day job situation. And we grew up on Lake Erie. So my grandparents built a beautiful home on the lake. And I was driving home from work and I was passing by and I stopped at their home. I got out of my car and I was right near the water and I literally felt the stress of the day like fell off my shoulders. It literally fell off my shoulders. Just the scent and being at the lake was notably different. And so I'll never forget that experience. And I think that's what draws me back every single time is just like, oh my gosh, the stress was gone in an instant with a breath, really. So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and there's many statistics out there about specifically the chemicals that are emitted from, or the scent that is emitted from the trees, but also the salt water.
Yeah, right.
It's about the salt water and the smell of that air, that salt air. And, and for me, it was even beyond that 5 minutes, right? If 5 minutes is all you have and I have to smell the ocean, or I have to put my feet in the lake, or I just need to touch a tree, I think that starts to deepen.
Yeah.
Right? The more you spend time with that 5 minutes, now it's 10 minutes. Now I want 15 minutes. Now I need more time. And And then, for me, it started to feel like now I want to communicate with these elements. I want to communicate with the trees. I want to say, hey, I had a really horrible, stressful day, and I don't know how to process this. I don't know what direction to take, perhaps with work, and guide me. Show me what direction I'm supposed to be going in.
And that connects too with your intuition and gives you those downloads we were talking about, or even just a little hint of what you might want to be exploring next. Tell us about a time when you realized maybe you didn't have to change everything about work or your career to feel better.
Yeah. So this is sort of a flow of, I would say, events, or a flow of things happening in my life that one thing led to another and then birthed forces of nature. It was also, again, have to use COVID as the transformation point for me. Work was, again, feeling quite challenging. There was a lot of dynamic happening and just the stress of all of the change that was happening and how business was being impacted by that. And I felt like I realized, again, that some sort of change was needed. And I had been working, even slightly prior to COVID, had been working with an energy healer, someone who's done a lot of deep work in shamanic healing. And I was working with her for personal reasons. I'm working through a personal challenge that I'd been going through that needed some healing. And it sort of morphed into also some healing, with some professional challenges that were happening. And through our work, the question came up what if I thought about this differently? Again, what if it wasn't about this big, huge change? What if it was about trying something else on in my life that felt like it could access my creativity? And right around that same time, there was this spontaneous, completely, like the moment I walked into the door at work, there was an invite sent to us. That was an invite to this workshop that was happening. And it was a workshop being hosted by IDEO, which is an organization, a company out here that's like a design innovation company. And human-centered design, human-centered innovation. And the workshop was being hosted by IDEO. Someone was coming from IDEO to speak, and you had to sign up right away. It was like this last-minute thing, and I signed up immediately. And the workshop was about human-centered design and specifically to how we can solve different problems for our consumer, but how we can put a lens on that question of what the consumer wants. And we tried on a personal exercise of our own to practice how these questions and prompts would let us look at this personal situation in our life. And the exercise that I tried on was about this creativity and this creative idea that I had in my head that became forces of nature. And so that's how Forces of Nature came to be. It was really just a notebook. And how can I look at this differently? And what am I solving for? Who am I solving for? How can I solve it in a different way? And then from there, I circled back to my energy healer, and it was a conversation of how do we bring this to a more three-dimensional space? How do we bring this into something that's taking a little bit more form? And we can just look at it as a creative exercise. It doesn't have to come to life to be anything. It can hang out in a vision board. And that's really how it came to be. The vision board, and then it became more of a concrete idea. And then it really brought this passion and this connection, this love that I was having in nature, and these deep, intimate experiences that I was having in nature, self-guided nature, that came to life as forces of nature.
This is such a good story. And it's really kind of what I'm hearing. It's really more about realigning. It's like realigning how you're living your day to day and how you're showing up. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So just to clarify for listeners, you have what I would call like the W-2 or the day job, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So,
okay.
Yes. And so Forces of Nature came through the day job, through this workshop, and came to fruition to what it is today so beautifully alongside the W-2 job. And so I think that that's just something to call out because it doesn't have, a lot of times I work with folks, it has to be either or, and it really doesn't. And then when you have this other thing that you're working on that is so deeply connected and rooted, and it makes the day job or the W-2 job so much better, right? Is that what you're experiencing?
Yeah, absolutely. It is feeding that piece that may not always be fed.
Yes, yes.
The structured environment of corporate. Absolutely.
Hey there, beloved listener. It's Jen here, and I'm popping in with a quick invitation just for you. I know how hard it can be to navigate your career, especially in a world of work that's constantly changing. That's why I created The Gathering Ground. It's an insider circle for steady, heart-based support to help you grow with clarity, confidence, and community. Inside the Gathering Ground membership, you're invited to join us for weekly office hours to ask questions and stay grounded, exclusive pricing on one-on-one coaching, seasonal goal setting and reflection workshops. You'll receive a secret monthly newsletter with fresh tools and inspiration. There's a growing library of networking scripts, checklists, and career development tools designed to support you throughout your career. And best of all, a kind, generous community of professionals who just get it. So whether you're staying, shifting, or starting fresh, this is your space to be supported and stretched in the best way possible. It's just $97 to join, then $27 a month. Flexible, affordable, and no long-term commitment. To get started, head on over to flourish.careers/community and answer a few quick questions. Based on your responses, I'll send you a personalized development plan so you can begin right away with clear human support. No bots, no templates, just thoughtful guidance to move forward with confidence because you deserve a long, radiantly happy, and healthy career. I cannot wait to see you on the inside. Now, back to the episode. And I see that a lot too with folks that have this kind of like innate sense of creativity, which you're telling me through your writing and through obviously this work that you're doing with Forces of Nature and the yoga that you do. And I see this a lot with folks that just feel as though their corporate job, and I felt this as well, it just wasn't allowing me to be creative. It wasn't allowing me to bring the creativity because of the overly structured environment that it is. And one of the things that really helped me, and I'll just share this if it helps anyone else, is when I was still in corporate, I thought of that as the investment into my future. So I was doing these things side by side, and it was like, okay, this is the investment into my future. And that shift really helped, kind of get through and make the full transition. Not that you have to do that, but it just was like that mindset. And then it made the day-to-day so much better because I had this other thing on the side. So yeah, something to consider. But it's really around like, I think of it as like coming back into season with your work through whatever it is that you're doing on the side, instead of just feeling like you have to walk away from it completely. So it's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. And I just have to say, I love the name Forces of Nature. It's so good. Be a force of nature. Like it's so inspiring. So, okay. So we talked a little bit about like the downloads and the ideas coming from when you're outside. Can you share? So for someone that hasn't experienced something like that, can you share like an example of how it happened to you? Like you'd mentioned the writing comes through you, or just maybe for someone that hasn't experienced it, like how did you notice it the first time?
I was intentionally, besides the feeling of exploration, I was intentionally going into nature for personal healing.
Yeah.
And so I was listening for the messages. And again, this sense of slowing down, getting quiet enough, getting still enough. I was solo. I was doing these walks alone with my dog. And in that slowness, things started coming up. And so, I had this beautiful experience with a red fox and a really many times, many experiences with owls singing to me and looking down and singing. And so things like that, I think that's when you realize, yes, I've slowed down enough that obviously they're in their natural environment and that's where they live, but I've slowed down enough that they're coming out. I like to think of it as they're coming out. And I know you and I talked about the blue heron
Yes.
quite often. And I think there's a message there when those beings come and show themselves, especially repetitively. And so that's when I think you realize, yes, there's something more happening here. There's something deeper happening here with my relationship with nature and how we're now talking. That to me is we're talking. We're connecting. We each feel safe enough to be out and together with each other that we show up.
Oh, yes, yes, and yes. Do you have the animal totem books
But I've been wanting to get one. I just don't know which is the best, like the best one to get that is most authentic, because the blue heron just keeps showing up.
for you too? Yeah, and me. Oh my gosh, that's wild. Okay. So I have an animal totem book. I'm going to put it in the show notes and I'll share it with you after. So anytime I see an animal that's like out of the ordinary, I always look up the meaning. And shout out to my sister-in-law, Beth. She does this too. And she really started me doing this, but they always have messages for you. And so I love that you mentioned the red fox and the owls. Oh my gosh, I would die to see an owl, the blue heron that's showing up for both of us. So knowing what those animal totems or messages are can really give you guidance in your day to day. And I know some listeners might think this sounds pretty off the wall, but it really, really does. And so I see messages and things like this all the time. And I love thinking about what the meaning is. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what it means for you. And that's nature's way of communicating with you, which I am obsessed with how you just shared that. So yeah.
And I think it guides you to feel that there's trust there.
Yeah.
There's trust. It's okay to go talk to a tree.
Yes.
Get on a tree. It's okay to, I one of my favorite trees, I spent time it's a beautiful young pine tree. And I spent time just rubbing that scent on my hands and connecting it to my heart. There's life there.
Yeah.
Life that goes on and on and on for hundreds of years, and there's intelligence there, and so it sounds woo sometimes, but there's trust there. And I think when you're slowing down and you're seeing the owls and the herons and getting those animal messages, there's something to it, and there's trust.
Definitely. Have you ever read the book The Secret Life of Trees?
I do. I have read it.
Yeah, me too.
Copy is around here.
Same. Oh my gosh. We'll have to put that in the show notes too. It's so good. Yes, I love this discussion so much. And for listeners, if you haven't listened to last week's episode and the episode before that, they're all about signs and synchronicities and the different ways that the world communicates with us. And this is just one of my favorite topics. I don't think I got into the animals and the natural world as much. So Lori, it's just expanding that conversation, which is really, really fun. So now I want to talk about rest a little bit because you've talked about slowing down. And I know that you've mentioned how the natural world helps you really rest. And we're all in this world of performing and achieving and more and producing more and all these things. So can you tell us about a time where you experienced real rest and what shifted for you? Because I don't know that I have ever experienced real rest.
There is not just one time, thankfully. There's multiple times, and I have a lot of tools in my healing toolkit to know when rest is calling me, to know when I need to take time off of work and step away and get that rest. So for me, I think it's a little place-based. I think there are some really sacred, wonderful places that I've had the luxury to be able to travel to or to get away from in the Bay Area. And one of them is a couple hours north of San Francisco. And it's a coastal area. It's the coast, but it's also just a sea of redwood trees. And so you've got the luxury of both. And I call it my hideout. It's not a specific spot that I stay in all the time, but it's where I can go hide. And there's very little, the cell phone is off. There's no reception. You get to put that aside, and there's no Wi-Fi in a lot of places. And you're removed from that stimulus and all of the expectations, and you really just feel the slowness as soon as your phone disconnects and your Wi-Fi disconnects. You realize that's what you're there with. I'm here with, my creative ideas, hopefully, and the trees and the ocean in a really deep way. There's no city life happening there. There's very little industry other than hospitality and, some tourism. And that's one of the places that I really experience deep rest. Like the Milky Way is out. There's shooting stars happening. And how often do we get to sit and experience those things? Or, if we're in a city, we don't even see them because of the ambient light. So that's what happens there. And the animals come out again there. So that's one of the places where I really do get deep rest. Hawaii, for anyone out there, Hawaii has just been a really, really sweet, special spot for me, specifically the Big Island. And so that's another place where I really experienced deep rest. And I was just there a couple of weeks ago, and I realized, in terms of deep rest, that I was living totally in alignment, or that particular week, with my circadian rhythm. So Hawaii is just this bursting with raw, live nature. There's volcanic rock everywhere. And going to bed when your body naturally feels tired, and it's okay. Not having to stay up another hour because I have to do more work, or I have to take another call, I have to be on a Zoom. I'm going to bed because I just feel tired, and it's 8 p.m. and the frogs are singing me to sleep. And then I'm waking with the sun and the ocean, and hopefully on a wonderful day, the dolphins are coming out at 7:30 in the morning or 7 in the morning. And so that's deep rest to me, is living in alignment with that circadian rhythm and waking with the nature, going to sleep with nature.
Wow.
It's deep rest for me, and how I experience it in those places.
That is really, really powerful to think about. And a couple things that jumped out at me as you were talking is this idea of being intentional about it. So you're intentionally going to the redwoods. You're intentionally going to Hawaii, or whatever your Hawaii is, for listeners. Like, you're going to these places that allow you to feel that deep rest. And I think that's what you started by saying. It comes with a place. And I think that's so profound, especially places where you can disconnect, or the world disconnects for you, where there is no Wi-Fi and you don't have those distractions, is just really important. You made me think of this time. I went on a yoga retreat with my sister in the Catskills once, and I'll never forget this. Again, crazy demanding day job. I was literally on a conference call as I was driving to the Catskills on this yoga retreat to meet my sister, and the Wi-Fi shut down as I was there. I'm like, well, I guess that call's over. And I took my phone and threw it in the back seat. And that was the end of the phone for the whole weekend. And the Milky Way, the stars, the darkness. Oh my God. This was, I don't even know, over 10 years ago. And I can still feel how rested I felt in that space. So I'm so glad that you opened my mind to thinking about that a little bit differently, and just being really intentional about where you are and disconnecting.
And watching how you rest, watching when you're going to bed, when you're waking up.
Yeah.
Organic
with nature. Yeah, that's really how we're supposed to live, right? So that's exactly what we all kind of need to get back to. I think the pendulum has swung so far to one side at this point with technology, which has enabled so much for us, but we've lost the connection to ourselves. And so this whole circadian rhythm and going to bed when the sun goes down, no matter what season it is, and waking up with the sunlight, what a beautiful thing to think about. So thank you for sharing. Now, what if someone is listening and they're thinking, I don't have time to go on a vacation, or, I just can't break away. Where could they start? Like maybe there's a small way that you could recommend for folks to get started.
Yeah. And I think for me, when I'm not in Hawaii or up on the northern coast of California, it's busy. I have an active dog and I commute every day to the office. And so I have to identify those things as well for myself. And so I've been calling them micro moments. And this past week, my micro moment was in my yard, laying down on the grass for 5 minutes, just laying down on the grass. And again, no phone, no laptop. You're on the grass, just feeling that grass, feeling the earth. So it could be as simple as that. I also, during my morning dog walks, and I'm walking around a neighborhood, a suburban neighborhood, smelling someone's rose bush, like really smelling, getting your nose into that flower. Any plants that you're walking by, on your daily walk, listening to the bird song, but really listening to the bird song. Again, no phone, listening, watching the birds and their activity and what they're doing, what their colors are, how they're communicating with each other. I think those are some of the ways for me. The stars, going out at night, if you can see stars and the moon, and looking for, what's happening in the sky. Maybe there is a shooting star if you're lucky enough to see a shooting star, and communicating along the way with all of these little stops that you're making, these little 5-minute stops. You can still communicate. You can still ask the stars and the sky or the rose that you're smelling for guidance.
Yes, yes, yes. The micro moments. I call it 5 minutes to flourish. Just anything that's going to help you reconnect, and really about noticing. Like, step outside, put your feet in the grass, listen to the birds, notice the moon, splash some sun on your face. That'll make you feel better no matter what. So yes, micro moments are there for everybody. And even in between meetings, like I remember running out in between meetings just to put my feet in the grass and like feel grounded. And then literally 5 minutes just gives you so much energy for the next whatever you have to do. So I remember sitting outside actually when I was commuting, now that you say this, going outside for lunch for 15 minutes. God forbid we take a lunch break and go sit outside and just enjoy the sunshine for a few minutes before finishing up the day. So yeah, great examples. Now here, as we wrap up, a question that I like to ask everybody. We've mentioned a few books throughout this episode, but in terms of your resources and experiences, a book or a podcast or something that's had a significant impact on you and your career, and why would you recommend it?
There's many books. There's definitely, I'm leaning towards 2 books. One is very organic and one is kind of referencing that IDEO company again, which is also another great book to put on the list. But I would say the one that I cannot stop thinking about, and it came into my career, I discovered it early on in my career in corporate as part of I was working in a conceptual role at the time, and it was influencing some of the concept research that we were doing. And I can't let go of it. It's in my library. I also have multiple copies of it. I've given copies out. It is called Wabi Sabi, which at the time was not a term anyone was aware of when I picked it up. And now it's a little bit more a household name or concept. It is the Japanese philosophy, like a Japanese design philosophy of the beauty of imperfection and impermanence, and maybe even things not looking perfectly pretty. And so it's a design philosophy or a design aesthetic that also translates to lifestyle. And leaning on that concept of slow living and letting the raw and the imperfect things, like finding the beauty in that. And again, we can reference that back to nature as well and how organic things are and how organic things grow and look and behave. And so that book has really just been, and that's just one that I can never stop thinking about.
I cannot wait to check it out. I am sold. So I can't wait. I'm going to go check it out right after this. I really appreciate you sharing. And the beauty of imperfection just sounds so lovely in itself. Right. Yeah. Perfect. Oh, that's great. I will definitely add that to our flourishing favorites list for sure. Now, you had mentioned, is there one more that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, the book, The Art of Innovation, which is about IDEO, the design organization IDEO, or the human design organization IDEO. And it's just really a brilliant company. If you ever have the opportunity to hear anyone speak from that company, chills. You will get chills. Just a different way to think about in the context of applying design solutions for consumers.
Yes, that's a great recommendation. I'm actually surprised that hasn't been mentioned before. So thank you for that as well. Lori-Ann, this has been such a delightful conversation. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram at Ann VanTol. My website is loriannvantol.com. That's my Forces of Nature website. And I also have an upcoming Yoga Nidra in the Forest gathering coming up on June 28th.
Perfect. We will put that in the show notes. And I wish I was local to you because I would be going. I'll be there in spirit. Think of me. It sounds so delightful.
Thank you so much, Jen. I feel like I can talk to you forever about this.
Definitely have some type of kindred spirit with the natural world between us for sure. And this has been so much fun. So thank you for sharing your stories and all of this inspiration for listeners.
Thank you, Jen.
Listeners, as always, you can find the notes from today's episode on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.